Any views expressed in this film are those of the artists, recorded as part of the Future is Loading exhibition. If you could make one significant change to cultural spaces, what would it be and why?
Man, that's a hard that's a hard question.
Diversify these spaces, make all the spaces accessible to everyone, make sure these spaces are everywhere and for everyone.
Oh man. I don't know if I can answer with one thing that I would change, one significant change. I mean, again, because I think so much about the museum and the gallery sort of as like spaces that are oftentimes really difficult to navigate with. That's what I think about first. But it's difficult to conceptualize a change. For instance, if I said, I wish that full accessibility in museums and in galleries, public and private, was standardized, and there was a set of standard accessibility accommodations that must always be adhered to in curation, in gallery spaces, in the configuration of installations, always. I wish for that. That's one thing. That's one significant change. But it's difficult for me to say that without also acknowledging every other way that cultural spaces are highly, highly inexclusive and antagonistic often. To ask for sort of like what radical accessibility, right? Like, more than would ever be considered standard right now, but is what should be the standard, to ask for that. I can't do that without also acknowledging the way that racism is sort of built into the foundations of the museum, because it is a colonial institution. I return a lot to the idea that if we really want to see significant change in the way that the art world operates, then we really need to do sort of like a deep unrooting of the museum, and like really significant changing of like the way they operate, the histories they attach themselves to. Because to make a change, to ask for accessibility in a space that has its roots in such violence, and like the way that the Western canon is constructed is so denigrating to so many people who are of color and disabled, walking into that space, getting the accessibility that they need is amazing and really needed, but it's not like their bodies are still going to be antagonized because they're of color and they're existing in a space that has its roots in the marginalization and the objectification and spectacleization of their histories and their bodies. It's really easy to forget that because we are really operating in sort of this like contemporary age of work. So a lot of discussion has sort of fallen away. I mean, there is discussion happening, about like what is a natural history museum, everything like that. But we're operating in sort of such a contemporary era where there's almost an illusion that the museum has changed as an institution because of the type of work that you're seeing inside of it. Of course, it's much easier to have discussions about colonialism when you're looking at paintings that adhere to traditionalist notions of fine art that include like undeniable concrete examples of racist imaging, misogyny, and all of that. But now, sort of in this contemporary era of work, it's difficult to have that conversation, because how do you have a discussion about colonialism when you're looking at experimental work in a museum? I wish it was so simple that you could sort of compartmentalize these things, where you could focus just on a discussion about accessibility and sort of like radical accessibility in the museum space without having the difficult conversations about race in the museum space, gender in the museum space. But I don't think we're at a place where we can do that sort of compartmentalization right now. But if I had to change one thing, I would change the notion of the museum completely. You said if money wasn't an issue, so.
A change. I personally think that most of the time people think they are better than others. My religion is better than others. My tools are better than others. I have a higher value than other people. My culture is better than others. My color of skin is better than others. My body shape is better than others. And this attitude allows people to look down on others. You don't fit into my group that I perceive as better than other people. People suffer as a result of this attitude. This can result in a lot of identity, a lot of culture, and a lot of issues. It can affect people's mental health. So, the one thing I will change is people's acceptance of diversity and the acceptance of other people's normal. We should be united by the fact there is no such thing as normal.
I think organizations and institutions, and they need to invest in supporting artists, and particularly those who need support, and not forget. There needs to be a structure put in that could support these artists, or institutions or organizations that can in turn help people lower down. And I say lower down, I mean those not running or giving funding or distributing funding.
You can view the Future is Loading exhibition on our Instagram and on our website at www.shapearts.org.uk.